So today as we discussed, we'll go into the introduction to the nectar of instruction. So this is what we'll be covering today. So we will look at the prayers to Rupa Goswami. We will also try to hear about the austerities and the humility and the great handwriting, as well as the books of Rupa Goswami. And then we will also look at the greatness of Rupa Goswami from his other works, right? And why do we do that? From material standpoint, we know, so William Shakespeare, right? So when you know about him, then you know his works are great, and there is enhanced focus on reading his works. So similarly, you have Agatha Christie or J.K. Rowling for, who had put together this Harry Potter books, right? So when you know, okay, this is the author, this is greatness of this. You're talking about material authors, but I just wanted to bring in the parallel here. Similarly, we have this Lord of the Rings, and then is Tolkien. So he's the author. So once we know about this author and his so-called greatness from material standpoint, then everybody's attracted to those books. So we will use the same analogy. So that's why we're not jumping into this nectar of instruction right away. So we will get into knowing, about Rupa Goswami and how great he is, and also how great personalities have offered various prayers to Rupa Goswami. And then we'll get into the English translations of the 11 verses of Nectar of Instruction. So I thought we'll pick this Nectar of Instruction because as far as I know, since the inception of ISKCON Scarborough, we have not had any session on this Nectar of Instruction. So it'll be good to have this introduction to Upadesamrta. So with that, we'll get started. So we will start off with this one verse that is repeated in Chaitanya Charitamrita over 40 times. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all glories to Lord Nityananda, all glories to Advaita Acharya, and all glories to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that includes Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, and all the other great personalities in our Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. And we know Gaura Purnima is, again, for those of you who joined us late, is on 17th of March, which is a Thursday. So it's very appropriate that we are learning about Rupa Goswami and his works, because he compiled all his works based on the instruction that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself gave Rupa Goswami. This is the Rupa Goswami Pranam. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapatantikam. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? This is a fascinating prayer by Baladev Vidyabhushan to Rupa Goswami. Dushkarani kavitvani ekaroti mahabala Shri Rupa Kavi Bhupe me sa deyad buddhi sampatam. May the mighty king of poets, Shri Rupa, who composes poetry that is very difficult to write, grant me the wealth of intelligence needed to understand his verses. So we need the mercy of Rupa Goswami, because we will not be able to understand his works without his mercy. So that's a wonderful verse by Baladev Vidyabhushan. And this is a prayer by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, so one of the other 6 Goswamis as well. So in this clasping a straw between my teeth repeatedly, I beg to obtain the dust of Srila Rupa Goswami's lotus feet, birth after birth. So this is a very, very important prayer by Raghunath Das Goswami, and where he's saying that he wants the dust from the lotus feet of Rupa Goswami, life after life. Now, more about Rupa Goswami. So who's Rupa Goswami? So he was fully empowered by Lord Krishna in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I've taken verses, and as you know, I like to provide references so that you can you can review that and go deeper into these verses. So at this point in time, because I see quite a few devotees have joined us, so as we usually do, we'll get different devotees to maybe read these verses. You may not have read these verses, so it's a great opportunity. It's just English. So I would like anybody to unmute and read the English translation, please.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
The white one, right, Prabhu?
Yes. Yeah, if you can there's some background noise, if you can. Sri Suktam is going on.
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah. Sorry, Prabhu.
That's okay. It's always good to hear that in the background, but yeah, you're going to read this. Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yes, Prabhu. Srila Rupa Goswami was fully empowered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught Srila Rupa Goswami the ultimate limit of the truth about Lord Krishna, the truth about devotional service, and the truth about transcendental mellows, culminating and Krishna. Finally, he told Rupa Goswami about the ultimate conclusions of Srimad Bhagavatam. Jai.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else can read this? Please take this as an opportunity to read, because through you we are all going to know this from Chaitanya Charitamrita.
By entering the heart, Rupa Goswami Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu empowered him to ascertain properly the conclusion of all truth. He made him an experienced devotee whose decision correctly agreed the verdict of the disciple successor. Sri Rupa Goswami was personally empowered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yeah, thank you. So again, what we are going to read today, again, we are going to read the translation of these 11 beautiful Nectar of Instruction verses. But what we are doing is building up to know who is this great personality who put this together. So he's fully empowered by Lord Krishna in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay, another devotee. Okay, because we have limited time, so just jump in and read, please. I can do it, but I want to give everybody an opportunity to read these scriptural verses. Anyone? Okay, for 10 days, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed in Prayag and instructed Rupa Goswami. Where was he empowering him? This was mainly in Prayag and in other places as well. We know in Jagannath Puri as well, we'll see that. So this was one of the beautiful prayers that we all chant, right? So nothing new, but it's important to know the context, right? So this Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauritvi Nama. So this verse was penned down jointly. Actually, it was recited jointly by Rupa Goswami along with Anupama Malika. We know the relationship there. And they offered this wonderful verse to the Lord. And ISKCON founder Acharya A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada has given this to us. And this is an integral part of what we do as part of our worship to the Lord. We chant this especially to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, oh, most munificent incarnation, you are Krishna himself appearing as Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You have assumed the golden color of Srimati Radharani and you're widely distributing pure love of Krishna. We offer our respectful obeisances unto you. Okay, anyone else would like to read this quickly?
The brothers actually have no fixed residence. They reside beneath trees, one night under one tree and the next night under another. Srila Rupa and Sanatana Goswami beg a little food from the houses of Brahmanas. Giving up all kinds of material enjoyment, they take only some dry bread and fried chickpeas. They carry only water pots and they wear torn quilts. They always chant the holy names of Krishna and discuss his pastime. In great jubilation, they also dance. They engage almost 24 hours daily in rendering service to the Lord. They usually sleep only an hour and a half. And some days when they continuously chant the Lord's holy name, they do not sleep at all. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. So these are some of the austerities and sacrifices of both Srila Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami. So they were sleeping beneath, it's not like they were sleeping in big palaces, so they sleep beneath the trees that are in the roadside. And that too, they don't go back to the same tree because there's a lot of shade and everything else. One night in one tree, another night in another tree, etc. And then they just beg little food from brahmanas, and they just take little bread and fried chickpeas just to keep them going. And they just carry a water pot, and they're not wearing expensive clothing, toned quilts they wear. And they always chant the holy names of the Lord, discuss the pastimes, and they also dance, which is one of the 64 forms of devotional service. So, and it is said that they engage almost 24 hours by rendering service to the Lord, various forms of devotional service. And maximum they sleep is 1.5 hours. Again, it's not for us to imitate, but for us to follow, right? So we cannot also try to just sleep for 1.5 hours. So that's not the intent here. So we cannot imitate great personalities, but we follow in the footsteps. So what's the difference? So we can't just continue to just take rest for 1.5 hours, but then we don't sleep for too long, right? So based on our activities that we have signed up for, what we have committed based on initiation or even non-initiation, what time we wake up, what time we chant, etc. So we follow in the footsteps of going through this austerity and sacrifice, but not trying to imitate. So that's the austerity and sacrifice of Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, and the humility of Srila Rupa Goswami. So can another devotee kindly read this?
Although
I am the lowest of men and have no knowledge, the inspiration to write transcendental literatures about devotional service has been mercifully bestowed upon me. Therefore, I'm offering my obeisances at the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has given me the chance to write these books. Devotees always think, right? Like, even if the devotees are householders, most of us are, and if they do really well in anything, they'll think, thank you, Krishna, because you've given me this opportunity. You put me in this place for me to succeed, because anyone else in my place would have done much better than me. So here, Rupa Goswami is saying, although I'm the lowest of men and have no knowledge, absolutely we know that that is not the case, because he's the highest and he's got all the knowledge, and but he's giving that complete credit to the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay, so we'll get another. Okay, this is about the handwriting of Rupa Goswami. You would have all heard about it, but I've just put the reference that this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya Leela. This is from 93 to 101 verse, right? So I'm not going to read this. I'm just going to condense this, right? So when Rupa Goswami he was writing this book. So this was in Jagannath Puri. Okay, so he was writing, as you know, Vidagdha Madhava and many other books were penned down by Rupa Goswami. So when he was with Haridas Thakur and he was penning down a book, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu suddenly appeared. And then both Haridas Thakur and Rupa Goswami offered obeisances to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced both of them and then sat down. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Rupa Goswami, what are you doing? What are you writing? And then Rupa Goswami held this palm leaf with a page of the manuscript, and he saw his beautiful handwriting, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased. And he said, the handwriting of Rupa Goswami is just like the row of pearls. So, and then he read that particular verse. So Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya 1.9, and this is the famous verse where the translation is, I do not know how much nectar the two syllables Krishna have produced. Maybe I'm going to ask somebody to read this. This is the famous verse, Tunde Tandavani Ratim Vitanute Tundavali Labde Karna Krodha Kadabini Gatete Karnar Budebhyas Priyam Cheta Prangana Sangini Vijayate Sarvendriyanam Kritim No Jane Janita Kyabdi Ramrite Krishneti Varnatui. So if anybody can kindly read this, CC Antya 1.99, little below the halfway point. Can somebody read this? Yeah.
I do not know how much nectar the two syllables Krishna have produced. When the holy name of Krishna is chanted, it appears to dance within the mouth. We then desire many, many mouths. When that name enters the holes of the ears, we desire many millions of ears. And when the holy name dances in the courtyard of the heart, it conquers the activities of the mind, and therefore all the senses become in. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Very well read. It's our younger devotee who always reads very well. Thank you so much. So this is the path.
No, it's
Thank
not
you.
that. It's not. It's another one. Okay, thank you.
Oh, okay. But you're still young.
Yeah, I am 18 years old, so not young.
Compared to us, you're very young, believe me. So this is the pathway, right? Like, so this is the pathway. So the two syllables, right? So the nectar, it is said, and then when the holy name of Krishna is chanted, so when we chant, it's appearing to dance within the mouth, and we have only one mouth, and Rupa Goswami said he needs many, many mouths. And then from the mouth, it goes into the holes of the ears. And he's saying, I just have 2 ears. I need many, many ears because I want to hear the names of Krishna being chanted more and more and more. 2 ears are not enough to absorb that sound vibration. So from mouth, it goes to the ears. And from there, it goes into the courtyard of the heart, and it conquers the activity of the mind. As we know, mind is the leader of the senses. We always say, we cannot control the mind, we cannot control the senses. So here, this is the formula that is given as to how we can control the mind according to Rupa Goswami. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as you can read from the penultimate verse here, he chanted this verse, Tunde Tandavani. So it's very important that we memorize this verse, 1.99, Antya Leela, chapter 1, verse 99. And the pathway is given. From the mouth, it goes into the ears, and then from there, it comes to the heart. It conquers the activities of the mind. And because of that, the senses become inert. That means it's like the cobra, the senses are like cobra waiting to sting and put us in trouble. But here the teeth is removed from the cobra's. It cannot be poisonous anymore because the senses have become inert, because the activities of the mind have already been conquered. And that is conquered because of the chanting of the holy name through this process that is described here by Rupa Goswami. And this particular verse was chanted by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When he saw that beautiful handwriting, he read that as well. So this is the beautiful verse, and this is the greatness of Rupa Goswami. Not only he's a great poet, but his handwriting is supposed to be very, very beautiful. And that was certified by Lord Krishna in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. These are some of the works of Rupa Goswami. I just collected it and I put it here. So that, we all know how great Rupa Goswami is, right? So most of you would have read many of these books, especially Stavamala, right? So it's all over Veda based. Most of it you'll find in Veda based. But if you need some, I can always get it from different sources as well. If you know about one particular work, and if you want it, please let us know. So these are some of the work, especially Padyavali, right? So Padyavali is not penned down by Rupa Goswami, but he's collected this from various sources. So that's Padyavali. It's got over 400 verses. So Upadesamrta Sindhu is a nectar of devotion, and Vidagdha Madhava, we know where this Tunde Tandavani is also referred to. So where Upadesamrta is what we are going to review today from about 100 feet above. So these are the works of Rupa Goswami. And I took this from Jiva Goswami's commentary, where he's describing all the works of Rupa Goswami. There's many more, but these are significant ones. This is an example of a fascinating verse. So I really like this verse, and hopefully all of you love this as well. So maybe we can get Mother Geeta, if you're there, to read this. Is it Mother Geeta? Okay. Anyone else would like to read this? Just the English translation will be good.
So what? Yes, Guruji. Here.
Go ahead.
Okay. Apispara mud pratipada sudakoti madhure purana gramanatavati tavalila rasajare manovatsa patum visaya visagate visatime kripa yastya turnam damaya dhammamumtar nakapate. Translation: although the very sweet nectar stream of your transcendental pastimes swiftly flows through the Puranas, the goal of my mind has now entered a ditch to drink the poison of material sense happiness. O Lord of the cows, please quickly curb him with your stick of mercy.
Beautiful. Very well read. So how old are you?
11.
I'm
11.
grade 6.
That's from the
Wow.
same household, right? Like, so this is fascinating. I'm pretty sure you're reading this verse for the very first time, right? Like, I don't think so you would have read this, right? This is hidden gem from somewhere, and very, very well done. Fantastic. Thank you so much for reading this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So
Thank
this
you.
is a very beautiful verse, right? So Rupa Goswami is saying, this is from Stavamala. As I said, it's a very famous work of Rupa Goswami. Although the sweet nectar stream, right, like it's like a river, the pastimes are swiftly flowing through the Puranas of Krishna is flowing through the Puranas. The calf, the little cow, you could say, the calf of my mind has entered the ditch to drink the poison of material sense gratification. He's praying, oh Lord, of the calves, because Lord Krishna is the Lord of the calves, cows. So please quickly curb him with your stick of mercy. Is that not a fascinating verse? It just is, right? So we just thought, this will be a nice introduction to Rupa Goswami's work. So fascinating work, right? So we're glorifying Rupa Goswami, how great he is before we get into this Upadesamrta. So we already talked about, when you read any work of William Shakespeare, once you know who's William Shakespeare, okay, then you automatically gravitate towards reading his work. Same thing with Agatha Christie, R.K. Rowling, etc. So we're trying to understand how great, right? We may have heard a little bit about Rupa Goswami. So I thought I'll bring in different angles of his greatness by selecting some of these verses. So this is a beautiful picture of Lord Krishna. So this one is from Chitra Kavitwani. So we are whetting your appetite because, as I said, next week is the last week where we'll have our online classes, and that's the 108th Zoom session. Symbolically, somehow it landed up to 108. And we will have an entire session on this Chitra Kavitwani which was penned down by Rupa Goswami. And that will be presented by who else other than His Grace Dravid Prabhu. But this is a little introduction. 3 or 4 verses are taken because it's so glorious, so that you get an idea of it, so that you can relish this next week as well. Would anybody like to read this? Or I can read this. I'm just looking at the list of devotees.
In a secluded forest which attracts swarms of maddened bees with its fragrance, which contains many decorated paths, and which gives pleasure with its cool breezes, I always glorify a certain Lord in order to attain spiritual bliss. That rasa-laden Lord, the maintainer of his devotees, is flooded with the splendor of many necklaces. His arms are like snakes. He immediately increases the agitation within the heart, and he tinges the luster of the Yamuna's waves with the luster of his nails, lips, yellow cloth, necklaces, bracelets, and crown. Hare Krishna.
Beautiful. It's a very nice meter, right? Ganda Krishna Gurun Madalini Vane Hara Prabhati Plutam Sampusnantam Upaskrita Dvaniyami Vichi Shriyoranjakam. Like that it goes. Beautiful verse. Now, fabulous verse, long verses, beautiful meaning. So it takes us there. You can visualize it. It takes you back in time, 5,000 years ago, in the secluded forest which attracts swarms of maddened bees with so much of fragrance, etc. So this is fascinating by itself. But what is more fascinating, again, the intent of today's class was to glorify Rupa Goswami through his glorious works. So this is the fascinating part of it, right? So the same verse is there, Ganda Krishna Guru. So that verse is there. But how this was penned down, again, this is from Baladev Vidyabhushan. We won't know this, right? We'll just read the Sanskrit, the translation is there, great meaning. But then see the artistry behind this, right? So again, I'm just putting it here based on what is provided by our acharyas, right? It's not like I have figured this out. So I'm just sharing what was shared with me to show the greatness of Rupa Goswami. So the same wording, the first line is across like this chakra. The second line is across this chakra. Third line is across this spoke of this wheel. And the fourth one is around. So you'll see this just to show the greatness of Rupa Goswami here. So you can see here, the first syllable ga is there. Then ganda, like that it goes. So it goes from bottom left to top right. That's the first line. And then second line, as you can see, second line comes from here and it goes down from top left to bottom right. And then the third line starts from top to bottom. there is a central word called ni there, or syllable ni. And then the fourth line is going in a clockwise direction. Is this not fascinating? So these are the things that we will not know by ourselves, but our great acharyas have gone deeper, not just in the translation of these verses, but also the beautiful arrangement of these verses. So this is arranged like the spokes in a wheel. Now, the extra speciality of this verse is that Rupa Goswami has ingeniously placed a hidden signature inside the spokes of the wheel. So the signature is not apparent in this verse, but it becomes visible only when the verse is drawn after the wheel formation. So if you see here, it is said, Krishna Stutir Asau Rupa Virachita. So you can see here, one, and then the smaller circle is the second line. So in two lines, it is. What is the meaning? It says, this prayer to Krishna was composed by Rupa. So beautiful, beautiful, stunning. We can't even think about this, right? Not just that the verse by itself, we've got fascinating description of Lord Krishna where we can meditate on what has happened, but also the way it has been arranged is mind-boggling, beyond what we can think about, right? So this is another example. This is this verse number 6, right? Rase saranga sanga chitanavanalina praya vakshastadama. Like that beautiful verse. So can somebody read the English translation?
Yes, Prabhu. Krishna. To increase his glory, Lord Gopala, who was adorned with peacock feathers, ornaments, necklaces, and splendid, spotless, multicolored tilak, shone brilliantly when he saw the Rasa dance arena. His chest was decorated with a fresh lotus garland, attracting many bees, and he was smiling broadly in response to the auspicious, pleasing sounds made by his devotees. Steady at heart and eternally young, he expanded himself into many forms during the dance.
So this is the thank you very much. So this is the expansion of Lord Krishna during the Rasa dance, right? So beautiful, beautiful verse. So this is from Chitra Kavitvani as well. As the previous one was this spokes on the wheel. This is a snake formation. So the same verse as you saw in the previous, this long verses, he had actually arranged it in the form of a snake. Can you believe that? just beyond what we can comprehend, right? So you can see here, as you can see, Rase Saranga Sanga. So how does it go? Where do you see it starting? Anybody? Can you see on the top? Rase Saranga Sanga Chita. Can you see that? It goes from top and then comes to the bottom and goes to the left, right? So that's the first line. So now the second line is Barhalankara Hara Spuradamala Mahara Chitre Jayaya. So you can see this is the second one. Can you see where it's starting? Anybody? From the left, it goes from the left, then it goes in the clockwise direction and comes down. Okay. And the third one is that Gopaladasa Viti. So where this one starts is from the bottom. From the bottom, left it goes and then comes to the right. And then the last line is Navyojastram. So that starts with, you can see that where does it start? Anybody? From the bottom right, it comes to the left and then it goes up. So again, this is just the fascinating part of Rupa Goswami, right? So this is the 7th verse. Kalava Kyasada Loka, Kaladara Milavaka, Kavaladyad Bhutanuka, Kanuta Bira Balaka. Anybody would like to read the translation? Who's not read so far?
O Lord, who speaks sweetly, O Lord, seen by the saintly devotees, O supreme artist, O protector, O you who appear wonderful carrying a morsel of food and so on, O Lord followed by Shiva, O Lord prayed by Brahma, O cowherd boy, please appear before me. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Let's not, eagerly anticipate the arrangement of these syllables, which is extraordinary, but just just looking at the translation, right? So let's not fast forward the beautiful verse and the translation, right? So here Rupa Goswami is saying, "Oh Lord, who speaks sweetly." Well, we all know Bhagavad Gita is so sweet. "Oh Lord, seen by saintly devotees. Oh supreme artist. Oh protector artist." Like see the beautiful flowers that we see around and everything else. Even the snow is so beautiful. You who appear wonderful carrying a morsel of food. That's the picture that we put there. And so on. "Oh Lord, followed by Shiva. Oh Lord, prayed by Brahma. Oh, covered by, please appear before me." And now, anybody guess how this is arranged? Okay. This is a lotus formation here. So you can see here, Kalava. Yeah. So Kalava Kisada Loka. So and then the second line, third line, and fourth line. So it's arranged. So the first line is that purple color or rose color line that you can see. Sorry, it's hiding some of these words or syllables in the background, but it goes like that. Starts from the middle and it goes Kalava Kisada Loka, right? And then the second one is the blue line, Kalodara Milavaka. So you can see here. So it goes from here and then comes back to the center. Starts from the center, goes to the right, comes down and comes back to the center. And the third line, Kavaladya Gutanuka. So it starts from the middle, comes down, goes to the left and comes back to the center. And the fourth line, the last one is starting again from the center, green color, right? Starting again from the center, goes to the left, up, and then comes back down. So again, I mean, what can be said about this? We'll hear some of the comments from the devotees who I'm assuming that you're fascinated by this if you're seeing this for the first time. But for those of you who know about this fascinating Chitra Kavitva, I mean, nothing like this that we have seen, in the prayers that we have read. So this one is also from Chitra Kavitvani. Before we get into Upadesamrta, again, the intent is we want to glorify Rupa Goswami based on what we may not have known. Some of us may not have known. So I'm picking some of these verses randomly. But as I've said, next week would be an entire focus on Chitra Kavitvani by Dravid Prabhu. So this one is Subhasa Rasasarasa Prabhasandra Masaraba Bharasa Mahasavita Tarasarasa Savitam. Anybody? Translation?
It says, bodily luster like that of a splendid sapphire, the presiding deity of the rasa dance with the gopi, the destroyer of the burden of the earth, from whom comes opulence, fitness, and a shower of auspiciousness, quickly and gloriously produced an abundance of rasa.
Thank you. Nice. So any guess on how the structure of syllables are arranged? Anybody? Just pick anything.
I found Sa is going to be the center. I don't know what is the shape of the chitra.
Maybe like flute.
Flute. Okay, good try. Flute. I mean, Mridanga is not far from that, right? but unbelievable, right? Like these are. I mean, we won't know about this, and Rupa Goswami is not published anywhere saying, by the way, all of you would like my verses, but this is the corollary. He's the, another sort of presentation here where I'm providing you all the unbelievable details of this, how I arranged. No, he just translated, he gave us the verse and he left. And then the Acharyas in our Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya later on unearthed all these beautiful, fascinating arrangements, right? So you can see here, so Subhasa Rasasara Sri. So here, sorry, again, it's covering some of the syllables. So the first line is placed horizontally from left to right. As you can see, the arrows going from left to right. Second line, third line, fourth line. Now, some of you, I hope nobody's thinking that way. Okay, so it's great, but okay. But it doesn't end there, right? So you can see this one, first line, second line, third line, fourth line. Okay, fine. Then what happens? So the first line goes from here, comes from top left, bottom, goes to the top right. As you can see, the arrows pointing, right? The second one goes from bottom up and then comes in this form. Third one, as you can see, number 3, from here, it goes like that and comes back. And the fourth one goes in another beautiful formation, as you can see. So that's the first. Subhasara Sasarasri. And the second one is Prabhasandra Masaraba. The third one, Bharasa Mahasavita. And the fourth one is Turasa Rasasavitham. Okay, it doesn't end there. So this is another way to read this, right? How it is arranged. So it goes from top in a V shape, right? So you can see the beautiful V shape from left, top left, and it goes to the top right. And then the second line goes in another formation as shown in this diagram. And the third one, it can be read like this as well. And the fourth one goes again as an inverted V. First line was a V. Now it is like an inverted V, like a mountain. Again, these are like just beyond our human capability as to how somebody can, did he arrange this and then compile the verses, or verses and then how it can be arranged and makes perfect sense when we read the translation as well, right? So again, the translation is that his bodily luster like that of a splendid sapphire, the presiding deity of the rasa dance with the gopis, the destroyer of the burden of the earth, from whom come opulence, excellence, and a shower of auspiciousness, quickly and gloriously produced an abundance of rasa. Rasa means it's a taste, let's say. Okay, so with that little introduction, we had to spend some time, at least half an hour on this or more than that, because it's important for us to know. Otherwise, we are 11 verses and then we'll go. So what is Upadesamrta? So Upadesha means instruction, as we know, and Amrita means nectar. So Upadesamrta is a book of nectarian instructions for all the practitioners of Bhakti Yoga. So for all the sadhakas, this is dear as their very life and like a necklace to be worn at all times. So we talked about this necklace of pearls. So his handwriting. So this is to be worn like a necklace by all devotees. So whatever we covered now, that's not Upadesamrta. By the way, this beautiful arrangement. So I just wanted to make it clear. So whatever we covered is all from different works of Rupa Goswami, just to show how great he is, not just in this fascinating verse and the translation, but also in this unbelievable arrangement of these syllables in beautiful formations, so that we get to know his glory. So now we are getting into this Upadesamrita, the origin of Sri Upadesamrita. So here, once in Jagannath Puri, again, the previous Tunde Tandavani verse also was penned down in Jagannath Puri when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu read that. So here in Jagannath Puri, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took is devotees, intimate devotees, to the shores of the ocean, as we know, as Bay of Bengal. Now, seeing this beautiful blue ocean, of course, his mind gravitates towards Lord Krishna, and seeing the trees and the sand dunes, he remembered Vrindavan and Govardhan, and he was very much overwhelmed in ecstasy. So with great difficulty, the devotees brought him to his external consciousness because he was lost. And then he began to softly instructing the devotees, among whom Rupa Goswami was there. And Rupa Goswami recorded these instructions in the form of 11 verses that became the famous Sri Upadesamrta. So it's very important that we know the origin. So we know how great Rupa Goswami is, but Rupa Goswami is writing this Upadesamrita exactly as it is narrated to him by Lord Krishna in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri. So we get to know the greatness of the author so far. Now we get to know the greatness of the content because it's given to us directly by Lord Krishna in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to a great personality, Rupa Goswami. And we are so fortunate because of the mercy of his divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, we have access to this nectar of instruction, which is Sri Upadesamrita. So verses in Upadesamrita, right? So here is 11 verses. So only 11 verses, very short, that constitute the fundamental instructions to guide our activities. Practice means it's sadhana, right, of Bhakti Yoga. So these instructions are precious gift to genuine practitioners and are indispensable. So we have to follow them. Okay, so where are we with this? So I would like 3 different devotees to read the 3 groupings. I put headings here. So the 11 verses, we just put it in 3 different buckets or groupings. The first one is to avoid things unfavorable to bhakti. The second grouping is adopt things that are favorable to bhakti. And the third grouping is reside in Vraja or Vrindavan, either physically or mentally. So would 3 different devotees would like to, maybe I'm going to call out. Is that okay? Some of you are shy. So Ghanshyam Prabhu, as you're doing Bhakti Shastri course, all this should be very familiar to you. You would have already covered this. Can we hear from you about the first grouping, avoid things unfavorable to Bhakti?
Avoid things unfavorable to Bhakti. 1. 6 urges of mind, speech, anger, tongue, belly, and genitals. 2. 6 vices of overeating, over-endeavoring, useless talk, improper compliance with scriptural rules, bad association, and greed.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm just looking at the names here. Anybody who's not read so far? Amita Panchal, Mother, you're there?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Please read the second part.
Thank you so much. Adopt things favorable to Bhakti. 6 virtues of enthusiasm, determination, patience, prescribed practices, avoiding bad association, and following the acharyas. 6 loving exchanges of exchanging gifts, sharing hearts, and feeding one another. 3 types of devotees to be appropriately respected and treated. Not seeing pure devotees from material vision, awakening dormant taste for Krishna's name.
Beautiful. So we are not getting into the details, who are the 3 types of devotees, etc. today. We are looking at it today as an introduction to the nectar of devotion, because instruction, sorry. So each one will take, as you know, it takes a lot of discussion and, activities collectively for us to go through. So we will cover this, in the classes in Scarborough. But today we wanted to give you a 100 feet above overview of Upadesamrta. So if you have something to comment on any of these that you think are, which you like to say, more than welcome in the next few minutes. Can I get a third devotee to read the third grouping here, please?
I will read, Prabhu.
Go ahead.
Reside in Vraja, physical or mentally. Number 8, staying in Vraja, following devotees. 9, residing at the holiest part of Shri Radhakunda at Govardhana Hill. 10th is Shrimati Radharani and Shri Radhakunda are most dear to Krishna. 11, bathing in Shri Radhakunda and taking shelter of Radharani.
Beautiful, thank you. So the focus is here on bhakti, right? So what are the things that we need to, things that are unfavorable to bhakti? That's given, very important for all of us, repetition causes retention. So more we keep on reading this, then we will eventually be avoiding the things that are unfavorable to bhakti. All of us do have. So we will have to keep reading and practicing this so that we avoid the things that are unfavorable to bhakti in various degrees each one of us may have. Second one is even adopting things that are favorable to bhakti when we know what are they and what we need to do more of the same. Then again and again we read that and we'll adopt the things that are favorable to bhakti. And then the third part of is, we can't say, oh, I am in Toronto, how can I go to all these holy places? So that's why it's clearly mentioned by our recent acharyas, physically or mentally, right? So as long as we are there, even mentally, then we are okay. So all of you would have gone to Radhakund, Govardhan Hill, or many of you would have gone. Some of you may not have gone, but you would have seen the pictures and videos of it. You've read some of these wonderful things, because Radhakund, we always read about Radhakund when we are in this month of Damodar, because Bahulashtami takes place, and that's when Arishtasura was killed, and then the origin of Radhakund and Shamkund happened during the month of Damodar. So once we hear it again and again, and the past time associations.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Yes. Radha Kund and Krishna Kund, they are very important, and they are very revered and very much sacred. The devotees receive hearing here, they should try to see Radha Kund and try to, but the water there is not so clean actually. I asked the people who are residing there, why it is not so clean. They say the municipality cleans it every 14 days. So otherwise, There is no other way of cleaning the ponds. But the ponds are really good. Krishna Kund and Radha Kund. They are good. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So again, we can't, I mean, material, looking at, things in two different set of eyes, right? So one is materially we can look at it, and the other one is the spiritual significance of it, right? So even Ganges, you can say that it's polluted, etc., right? I mean, of course, if you really materially also, if you want something that is very pure, of course, you go to Gomukh, ideally, if not to Gangotri, like some of us would have gone there. And that's the purest of the pure that you can get, even from material standpoint. Nobody is washing their clothes or anything about that, right? But I mean, Radha Kund and Sham Kund, I was fortunate enough to actually take a dip during the midnight during Bahulashtami. That was only once I was able to do that. I mean, about 20,000 devotees will be there during the month of Damodar in Radha Kund. Of course, I mean, what do we expect? Every day, thousands and thousands. It's not a river that is flowing. It's a pond, right? So it's a stagnant, holy water. So of course, materially speaking, it has to be cleaned, but there is more than what we see materially. So even Vrindavan, when we go, you can't look at it from what we see with our material eyes. We see beyond the obvious, right? So that's what the holy dhams are for, or holy waters are for. Radha Kund and Sham Kund is, we hear more about it. So even if you're not able to go, especially during this, COVID times and everything else that is following after COVID, we thought, okay, COVID is going down, and then some other problem comes in Ukraine, right? But even if you're not able to travel, so hopefully that should not impact us from traveling to India if you can. But again, physically or mentally residing there. Physically also, you cannot reside there, right? Like how many of you can say, yeah, I'm a householder, I'm going to quit everything and go and reside. It's not possible. You can go there for a short period of time, for a few days, right? So, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, sorry.
No problem. Okay, so that's the three groupings here. So Upadesamrta has got 11 verses, but it's a quintessence of what we need to remember as devotees, such a significant group of 11 verses, Nectar of Instructions. So that's the first one, second sort of grouping, and the third one. Now, we talk what it refers to here, avoiding things unfavorable to bhakti, adopting things favorable to bhakti. And even when you're physically or mentally residing in a holy place, again, that is to enhance the bhakti. So here, what I did was we just took the 9 stages of bhakti. It's not the 9 forms of devotional service, which we know, which was given by Prahlad Maharaj first to Hiranyakashipu, but we're talking about 9 stages of bhakti here. So it starts off from like the little faith in Krishna, right? The Shraddha, right? That's a little faith. Then it becomes more when we have association of like-minded devotees, especially devotees who are much more advanced than us. Then Bhajana Kriya is following the regulative principles, right? So the 9 forms of devotional service. And then Anartha Nivritti, stopping unwanted things, right? So do's and don'ts, as the doctor says, oh, okay, you have sugar, eat this, don't eat that. So stopping unwanted things. And then Nishtha is firm faith. So the difference between Shraddha and Nishtha is the little faith and then firm faith. Ruchi is the taste, or mellows, you can say, taste for hearing and chanting, which is an extension of this Bhajana Kriya, following the regulative principle, but much more in an advanced stage. And Asakti is the deep attachment, and Bhava is the ecstatic emotional state, and Prema is the pure love for Krishna. So this is from Nectar of Devotion, and spiritual transition from this conditioned state to the ultimate state. So it'll go from this little faith, all we need is that little faith, and then it'll take us eventually, we are not there, some of you may be there, but it'll eventually take us to pure love for Krishna. So we need to know the process. So this is the 9 stages of bhakti that is described in Nectar of Devotion, again, by guess whom? Who's the author? Nectar of Devotion, anybody? Okay, you're all on mute. So it's Rupa Goswami again. Nectar of Devotion is put together by Rupa Goswami. Nectar of Instruction is put together by Rupa Goswami. But he by himself is one of the greatest poets that we have seen today. Yeah, materially, we talked about great authors, William Shakespeare and Agatha Christie, J.K. Rowling, Tolkien, etc. But can we compare any of them, or collectively as well, to Rupa Goswami. We saw not just the beautiful Sanskrit verses and the description that helps us meditate on Krishna, and but also the way it is arranged. So knowledge of the process of the 9 stages of bhakti helps us identify any hindrances or problems that are there or obstacles that are there. And it's like, once you know that, okay, you have a problem, blood pressure, okay, then you can cure that. So first is you have to recognize the symptoms or actually what's the problem. So these are all the things that will help us. So this is connected with, though it is not part of Nectar of Instruction, but it is, indirectly connected with Nectar of Instruction for us to know how to execute what are the 11 verses, how to execute those actions is by properly following these 9 stages of bhakti as well. So even though it looks like it's all separated, they are independent, but they are not, right? So it is said that there are various intensities of the same love for Krishna. Okay, so it's dilute at the bottom and it becomes strong on the top by adding few things. So here, these Nectar of Instruction, it takes us from Shraddha to Prema, little faith to the highest level of love for Krishna. The first 3 verses, so there are a total of 11 verses as we just saw. The first 3 verses talks about faith. Then text 4 to 6 talks about association of devotees. And then the 7th verse talks about 4 different things, right? It talks about bhajana kriya. Bhajana kriya is following the regulative principles. Anartha nivritti is what? Stopping the unwanted thing. Nishtha is a firm faith. That's the difference between Shraddha and Nishtha. And Ruchi is taste or mellow. And what is Ashakti? Anybody? Deep attachment to spiritual activities. And 9th is Bhava and Prema. So ecstatic, you can say emotional state, and then it is pure love for Krishna. So that is how our acharyas put these 11 verses in various categories for us to understand this much better. Okay, so this is again a nice little recap, or it's actually a summary of the 11 verses. It's important because we are not going deeper into it, because today is an introduction to the Nectar of Instruction. So we just have a couple of more minutes, but I just wanted to make sure that we take this away so that we can go deeper into, maybe you have Veda base, you have the book, so you can read further. So Upadesamrta at a glance. So the 3 groupings are, we have to avoid things that are unfavorable to devotional service. And that is the 6 urges of the mind. The mind will be pulling us to many things that are not favorable to bhakti. We may talk bad about people. We may get angry, and that might impact us because we cannot do our devotion. We cannot chant when we are angry with somebody. And the tongue, when the tongue is, it could be not just for anger or speaking badly, but also eating anything that is prohibited, right? And it is connected with the belly and genitals, etc. 6 vices, too much eating. So Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna talks about this as well. Over endeavoring, right? We are all grahasthas, we have to work, but how much are we over endeavoring for something that is temporary, right? Like it could be, I want to become a vice president of my company, right? At what cost? You can't do your sadhana, you're only focusing on that. Is that favorable to bhakti or not? It is not. We don't want to come up with some improper compliance with scriptural rules, right? So we don't have to say, okay, I'm going to work really hard, forget about all the devotional service. I want to get to that phase because I get more money so I can give money to temple. So that's an improper compliance with scriptural rules, right? Or saying all devatas are, nobody. We sort of give them absolute no respect, etc. Right? So that's the first part. Second is adopt things that are favorable to bhakti, right? So determination. That's if you don't have determination, it doesn't work, right? Nothing is easy. When we chant, or when we have to go to the temple, when we have to do some abhishek, you have to do yajna, whatever it is, you need yajna, you need determination, you need patience. And then we cannot have bad association and expect things to go in a positive direction as far as bhakti is concerned. And following the acharyas, we just talked about it, right? So we are not going to imitate, but follow in the footsteps of the acharyas. So giving gifts, sharing hearts, feeding each other, that's the prasadam. And then, few more are there. So the last part of it is, as we heard, it's either physically or mentally, remembering the holy dhams, right? So Vraja is one of the example that is given, and Radha Kund and Govardhan Hill. But again, the extension of that is if you've been to Jagannath Puri, if you've been to Dwaraka, if you've been to Mayapur. So those are the places that we can recite. You can visually think of all the beautiful deities in those holy dhams as well. Okay, so that's the introduction to Nectar of Instruction. So what we covered were the beautiful prayers to Rupa Goswami by great acharyas, and the austerities and humility and great handwriting and books of Rupa Goswami, the greatness of Rupa Goswami's other works. And that's the one that we talked about, or we discussed mostly with regard to Chitra Kavitvani. And that will be covered for an entire duration of 1 hour by none other than a person who is qualified to speak on this greatness of this Chitra Kavitvani, and that is this Dravid Prabhu. He'll be discussing this next week. So we requested him to do this for the benefit of all our devotees. So please do not miss this great session next Sunday, which will be probably the last session of our Zoom classes before we move on to in-person classes that Mother Dwaraka and others will provide more information in the next few days. So what we finally covered is the 11 translations, the 11 verses and the translations of Nectar of Instruction, which is also called as Upadesamrta. I'm just looking at the time. We are almost at the top of the hour. I would like to open it up for any of the thoughts or comments that devotees may have had with regard to the glories of Rupa Goswami, etc. So today is just a stepping stone for us to know the greatness of Rupa Goswami, so that we go deeper into this Chitra Kavitvani next week. But we also wanted to cover this Upadesamrta from 100 feet above, so that we all get to know what is the contents of this Upadesamrta. Hare Krishna. Okay. Anything to add on what we covered? Is Rupa Goswami okay? Is he a great poet? Anybody?
Ananda, this is very highly philosophy, and also it is not easy, so that you have to dedicate yourself to follow these rules and regulations to grow your bhakti in the topmost places. So that is what it is. It's so much deep into the bhakti. Yes.
Yes, but nothing is spectacularly different, right? Like if Upadesamrta said, okay, Prabhu, for 3 months, you have to do 100 rounds a day. Okay, so that's going to the next level, right? So here, your mind is urging you to go somewhere. Careful. Useless talk, don't get involved in that. Feed others, prasadam, right? So in a way, it is reiterating the obvious that is there in the whole gamut of instruction by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? So again, this is from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's not coming from anyone else, as we read earlier. So these are instructions that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave group of devotees, in which Rupa Goswami was present in Jagannath Puri. They were near the ocean, and then he came back to external consciousness and he gave this, right? So, I mean, most of us are in Krishna consciousness for many, many years. Yeah, we do the standard thing, we do whatever we are doing, set things we are doing, but we need to take it to the next level, right? Like our time is running out. So whatever we can do to increase our sadhana, that's what we need to do. So we need to go beyond what we are doing. Good point. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Sorry. Can I just add one little point?
Please.
You go, Mataji, please.
Thank you, Mother. No, I just wanted to add one little piece of information. I mean, whatever our acharyas have provided is just mind-blowing, but it's not exclusive to ISKCON alone. I mean, no offenses, but if you go to Sri Sampradaya, if you have heard of Vedanta Desikan, I think he was the 12th century acharya who came after Sri Ramanujacharya, and in his Paduka Sahasra, where he's glorifying with 1008 verses, glories of the Padukas of Sri Rama. Mind-blowing, Prabhu. I mean, I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Paduka Sahasram by Vedanta Desikan. If you get an opportunity, just look into that, Prabhu. It's very similar to what Srila Gurupa Goswami has done, the way the syllables are arranged. It's just very mind-blowing, Prabhu. You should also, if you get an opportunity, it's just an added information. But yeah, in every sampradaya, it's, something or the other is very unique and very special. Very blessed to have such acharyas in our sampradaya.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, with me, what I felt for Srila Rupa Goswami was, is it okay? Should I go or someone else is there to? Yeah, I could feel the love of Srila Rupa Goswami towards Krishna, to spend hours and hours of composition to make into that shapes and like beautiful, mind blowing, and it is impossible. Without love for Krishna, this cannot happen.
Absolutely.
He was willing to, right, without giving, how can one give so much of time and arranging, and how many times he would have edited it, how many times he would have done this work, like impossible, Prabhu. I loved it so much.
Yeah,
this is an amazing gift for us, right?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because we wanted to, that's the intent of this, right? So again, it's not something like a few of us have sat together and arranged this, right? So we are just displaying what our acharyas have decoded, right? So our acharyas have decoded the works of Rupa Goswami and put, what? Maybe there are so many more works of Rupa Goswami that are spectacularly arranged like this, right? But all we know is the Chitra Kavitvani is something that our acharyas have put together and arranged it in such a way to show the greatness of Rupa Goswami, not just in his composition, but also how it is arranged beyond the obvious as well. So this is just a different way at looking at our acharyas, right? So just don't look at them in terms of greatness in the content or the quality of content of these verses, but also in the visual display of how these syllables are arranged, which we may not have known, if not for our acharyas, right? So again, that's the important. We are in this disciplic chain, and if just Rupa Goswami work was there, then we may have just had the translation, but we may not know these glorious arrangements of these syllables at all. So thank you for sharing that. Anyone else? We just have
and also, Anand, it is nice that you nicely explained in a way so that
my job is easy. I'm just putting things together. But again, the glory is
nicely animated, and you clearly showed the path of those letters going and making into the composition. It was amazing. Your job is amazing.
No,
it
mine
wouldn't
is
have
the
come
easiest.
to us without you.
No, this is my job, believe me, it's easy. So please, no, mine is easy. Just that, I just wanted to share this because it's been my desire to share this, Chitra Kavitvani. Again, we just whetted your appetite today with these 2 or 3 verses from that composition. But please don't miss this last Zoom session next Sunday. Again, His Grace Dravid Prabhu, who's an expert poet by himself. So who better to explain the greatest of poetries that we are aware of in our Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya? As Mother Padmakshi said, there are similar works in a different way in other Sampradayas. But again, it is to show, Srila Prabhupada explained that we have these 4 main Sampradayas, right? Shri Sampradaya, Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, Rudra Sampradaya, and then Kumara Sampradaya. But all of them are love towards Lord Krishna, right? And then each one, and Srila Prabhupada said, if you follow any of these 4 sampradayas, you go back home, back to God, right? So there are 4 different paths, but it all goes to the same destination. And here we have this greatest of works. It's all available. Rupa Goswami's work is available. That's what I mentioned. If you're keen on, reading something, it's, as I think Dhir Nitai Prabhu mentioned, it's little higher level, but then it's we need to step up to the plate, right? Like we've been in Krishna consciousness, we've been doing what we are doing steadily, but we need to come to the next level as well. So, and one last thing is, if anybody is interested in the Dasamula Tattva, today we are discussing that evening in the Toronto Temple class. These are the 10 Vedic truths. This is a fascinating work. It's just, it is said that if we read these 10 bullet points, then it's like summarizing the entire works of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we're covering that during the evening session in Toronto as well. So main thing is, as we get older, we need to step up to the plate and do more and more as we can. So this is not like a story like what we covered today, and Deenitha Prabhu correctly mentioned. It's more of philosophy, but it's important, right? Like not just stories. Stories are great. That's what conveys the message. But once in a while, we need to. It's like sitting in a class and understanding thermodynamics like that. So that'll be the class later this evening as well. So we'd like to thank all the devotees for giving us your valuable time, and we will chant one Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
Prabhuji, you are the dynamic speaker, I can say.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.